We are going to continue with the series that we started on the wisdom of impermanence. So there's an English writer, Somerset Maugham, who said that there are 3 rules for writing the great English novel. But unfortunately, no one knows what they are. And I was reflecting on it, being a literature student, and I was thinking, like, isn't it same for living our life? It's really more like Braille. You open yourself to a new day with its joys and its sorrows. And then when I was in Canada, I read this story there of this couple that drove up 400 miles to go visit the biggest botanical garden in the eastern part of Canada. And they got there, and there was this giant, beautiful gate and the sign, the park is closed. Now, one of them got really upset, and he said that, we came here all the way and we should have checked. And his partner looked at the sign, got really quiet, and started to walk along a wall. So there was this 18-foot high wall, decorated Chinese wall. And after a while, this guy who was upset, he started to get very annoyed and he was fuming. And he was like muttering to himself that it's a 250-acre park and we are walking as if it's some kind of a pilgrimage. But nonetheless, he continued to walk behind his partner. And after walking for about 400 yards, all of a sudden, the gate, the fence, all that just disappeared. It was only a facade actually. And the rest of it had no fence at all. And they walked right in. And I was thinking to myself, isn't that often the way it is? We think it's a certain way. And then if we stay present, something else will open, and it does. And it always will. There is another story I read about Suzuki Roshi, the founder of a Zen center in San Francisco, and one of his students actually said to him, I've been listening to your lectures for years, but I don't understand. Could you please put it in a nutshell? So what he meant was, can you reduce your teachings, essentially teachings of Buddhism, to one phrase? So Suzuki Roshi said, everything changes. In the Buddhist view, the reason we suffer mentally is because our mind is misaligned with the way things are, both in the outer reality and also in our inner reality. The fundamental nature of both our inner and outer reality is change. So when Suzuki Roshi said everything changes, the implication of this statement or these 2 words is enormous. Now, we all know everything changes. I mean, it's not some kind of an esoteric truth. I mean, it's not some hidden truth, right? Things change. In fact, I mean, you could go up to anybody on the streets, even people who would not have meditated for a moment in their lives, and ask them, do things change? And everybody would say, yes, of course. The point is that we all know this. But on what level do we know it? We know it intellectually. We know it conceptually. We understand it. And we grasp the idea of it. But we need to go from that level to the level of direct, immediate experience of things changing as they are changing. You see the difference? It's not just knowing everything changes. We have to be seeing that directly. And that's what mindfulness allows us to do. So it's not just be mindful of what is happening, but it's being mindful in the service of this understanding that we live in a world of change. The teaching is so simple. What Buddha said was whatever has the nature to arise will also pass away. So if I were to ask you, what has the nature to arise? Everything, every single aspect of our experience, in the mind, in the body, inside, outside, everything that has the nature to arise, which is everything, has the nature to pass away. And we all experience it every moment. I mean, even during meditation, you would have noticed this. You know, those of you who practice, have a daily practice, as you sit in meditation day after day, you begin to sense in a very deep way that there's your breath breathing itself, and your thoughts appearing and disappearing, your feelings coming, going. And as you begin to listen in a deeper way, you notice that wherever you put your attention, it is in change. It's like the river of thoughts and feelings, the perceptions, and all the things, the sensations of the body. You know, there was this Greek philosopher who said, you can never cross the same river twice. I think his name is Heraclitus. He said it in like some 500 BC. But when we truly and deeply are experiencing this truth of change, the effect of that is that our hearts and minds relax a lot. We let go of struggle. We let go of many kinds of suffering. If I were to ask you to look back at all of your past experiences, I'm sure looking back, we can clearly see the impermanent, ephemeral nature. And this is so extraordinary about our minds. You know, we all know about this impermanent, ephemeral nature of experiences. And yet, when we look ahead, we become fascinated by all the great potentials and possibilities of what we can do, which is great, but we become entranced by them and consumed by them. You know, most of us, this is our lives. We are looking forward, or I would say leaning forward, anticipating the next hit of experience, the next event in our lives, the next project that we are undertaking, the next day of work, the next vacation, the next relationship. We are just leaning forward all the time into the unfolding of our lives. But this is the habit of our mind. Even if we know that all of these experiences that we are anticipating and wanting and looking forward to and leaning into, we know that they will soon be past. They will be like all the others. I mean, all of us have seen this clearly with respect to our changing bodies. Isn't that right? If we are attached to our bodies staying the same, staying a certain way, when they change, as they always do, I mean, do any of you have a body that has not changed? But if we are attached to them staying a certain way, we are going to suffer when they do change, and they will, because this is just nature. But it's quite different, and it's often difficult to see these changes that inevitably take place are not a mistake. And I've seen this so many times. When we are feeling well, things are going along, nothing is hurting very much in our lives, and actually our life seems to be flowing along quite smoothly. And then something happens, something changes. And whether expressed specifically or not, very often the feeling is, why me? What did I do wrong? And then perhaps, if only I were a little more on top of things, this wouldn't have happened. But it's not that we've done anything wrong. It's simply the nature of things, the nature of this body, the nature of the mind, the nature of everything in the world to change. This is what happens to everyone and to everything. I happened to hear a lecture by Stephen King. Many of you might have heard of him. He's written hundreds of horror novels, and a lot of them have been turned into movies. I mean, though I can't bring myself to watch a horror film, but I did hear his lecture for some reason. And in the question and answer part of his talk, someone asked him what people are most afraid of. And he didn't say serial killers or cancer. He didn't say terrorists or earthquake or hurricane or the pandemic. He didn't even say death. What he said was the people's greatest fear is change. Change itself in all its forms is something that we fear the most. One of the mantras, I'm going to share that with you, that has really helped me a lot many times and continues to do so is, anything can happen anytime. It's interesting because people might hear that often, anything can happen anytime, and at first it might feel a little fearful. Oh my God, anything can happen anytime. But in my life, the actual effect of that, of reminding myself of that, was that everything relaxed. I didn't have to live in this protective shield, trying to keep unfortunate, unpleasant things from happening. Because there's just the realization that all life is a process of change and anything can happen anytime. And so when things do happen, and things do happen to all of us, then we know it because we've been reminding ourselves all along. We are accepting of it. We are with it, and we are actualizing some wisdom. And this is really, I don't know if you've ever been to a Vipassana retreat. It's like a 10-day retreat, and this is really one of the main tasks during a Vipassana retreat. It's a very ancient technique of meditation taught 2,500 years ago. And all you have to do is like just seeing clearly and seeing closely and seeing repeatedly the changing nature of our experience those 10 days, just through watching our breath, sensations in our body, our thoughts and emotions as they are, without judging or dwelling on them, without putting on top of it labels of, we often do that: good, bad, right, wrong, pleasure, pain, pure, impure. That's again the habit of the mind. We lay a lot of opinions, labels, judgments on top of what is happening. So, what it essentially does is it deconditions this very deep habit of grasping, of being attached, of clinging to experiences, always craving situations that are pleasant, and then feeling aversion to people and situations and experiences that are unpleasant. And I would strongly recommend each one of you to at least take out those 10 days for yourself once in a year and experience it. Because it becomes very obvious that you begin to notice that your mind during these 10 days is like a flea, constantly hopping to and fro. And you will see that thoughts arise without any reason, without any connection, most trivial, most mundane, to deeply buried traumatic experiences. All are wounding. I mean, we don't go there to get comfortable when we go, or to feel good, because it's a process of purging. Our grief, disappointments, worries, guilt, shame, anger, resentment, bitterness, our deepest fears, like all the uncomfortable emotions and thoughts that we don't want to go through, layer after layer after layer, they come to the surface. And then day after day, you're sitting in meditation for 14 to 16 hours, and this gift of 10 days, nothing to do except to be paying attention to your process, to your mind, the patterns, and to stay with ourselves no matter what is happening. But the whole approach is an openness of the heart and mind to comfortable, pleasing, difficult, painful, unwanted, all of it, just as it is, right now in this very moment. So it's kind of a training in, like, whatever life presents you with, you're open to that. And this is pretty radical, isn't it? And what is really fascinating, and I'm not talking about any research, I mean, this is direct, immediate experience. Another pattern that we see, which is that we are also in the habit of holding on to the states of suffering. So, I was thinking about it. One can understand the rationale for holding on to present things, even though as a strategy, it's not that helpful. Because everything changes, so they are going to change. But why in the world would we want to hold on to what's unpleasant? And yet, we hold on to states of anger or jealousy or envy or pride or bitterness. There's this whole list of afflicted emotions which we get caught up in, right or not? I was listening to this interview, and one yogi was being interviewed about the mind. And he said something very interesting. He said, the mind has no pride. It will do anything, it does do anything. And often it does things that just create suffering. Like holding on to those states is like holding on to a hot, burning coal. It's very interesting. In English language, there are two words which, in the context of the Buddhist teachings, often are used synonymously. But actually, they have very different flavors, very different connotations. Because it's a difference between the experience of detachment and non attachment. You often hear this detachment. But in English, when we use the word detachment, it implies a pulling away. It's like almost like an indifference. Whereas non attachment keeps us fully, totally engaged with what is arising, but without clinging, grasping, without holding on. So I thought it was a very important distinction here. So life is not a series of attachment and detachment. Life is a series of attachment and non-attachment. So what I mean to say is enjoy life fully. Your car, your house, your vacations, your dreams, your goals, but not get entangled by them, not get consumed by it completely. And this, in our spiritual journey, is a very important part of self mastery, non attachment. To be able to deepen our insight into the truth of change and reflect on it. Whatever experience arises is like the flow of a river. There's nothing static, there's nothing constant, nothing which stays. All of this will fade away one day when we leave the body. So, what is left? What is left is your spiritual development, your oneness with your higher soul, your oneness with the Supreme Being, the Para Brahman, God, the universal consciousness, the cosmic consciousness, the love you have for the people around you, the souls that you interact with, the souls that you empower, the souls that you touch, uplift. That's what you get to keep with you for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. You get attached to something material, you can't take that with you. The only thing we can take is the lessons we learn in our earthly life. So that is why I always say that life is a series of attachment and non-attachment. Enjoy life, have fun, feel the exuberance, the aliveness, dream courageously, dare greatly, accomplish, do the best you can. But also remember, simultaneously remember at all times that you can't take it with you. And if we are able to live that way, I would say that's a good life, that's a good incarnation. You know, the Buddha said, in seeing impermanence, the mind doesn't cling. And when it doesn't cling, it is not agitated. And when it is not agitated, it is in a state of equilibrium or equanimity, it attains nirvana or highest peace. So, this is really like a shortcut to becoming an enlightened being. So, we have the teaching right here. But coming back to another very obvious reflection of impermanence is that the end of birth is death. Life is only getting shorter and shorter and shorter for all of us. And we are all in the queue now. Like in Mahabharata, one of the Rishi Munis, one of the sages says that the most remarkable thing is that we see people dying all around us, and yet we don't think it will happen to us. So again, of course, we know it intellectually. We all know that we will die, but until we are confronted with the immediacy of it, loss of someone close to us, dear to us. And when that happens, sometimes it's an opportunity for a great awakening and this great potential. You know, I'd like to share some very powerful reflections by the Buddha. And what I find really extraordinary is the little twist at the end. And the Buddha says, what is subject to old age grows old, and I am not exempt. What is subject to illness becomes ill, and I am not exempt. What is subject to death dies, and I am not exempt. I think this little phrase at the end is such a powerful reminder. Because in some bizarre way, we know that we get old and we get sick and we are going to die. But in some bizarre way, we think that we are exempt from it. And all these reflections are like the inconvenient truths that we don't like to see. But they are such powerful reminders. I'd like to close with a description of the enlightenment moment of an 18th century Zen Japanese nun. Her name was Tejitsu, and I was reading about her story in a book called Women of the Way by Sally Tisdale. So if someone is interested, you could look up that book. And there is this description in that story in her moment of realization. And it goes like this, that in her moment of realization, she saw that all the phenomena arose, abided, and fell away. She saw that the knowing of all this arose, abided, and fell away. Then she knew there was nothing more than this. No ground, nothing to lean on, stronger than the cane she held. Nothing to lean upon at all. And she opened the clenched fist in her mind and let go and fell into the midst of everything. That last image is so beautiful. She opened the clenched fist in her mind and let go and fell into the midst of everything. So essentially, as we deepen our practice to the seeing of impermanence over and over and over again throughout our day, what are we doing? We are opening the clenched fists in our mind. We will continue to reflect on the wisdom of impermanence in part 3 and part 4 as well over the subsequent Saturdays. But for now, I would like us to do a short practice. So just sit relaxingly, feeling your 2 feet on the ground, and just allow yourself to be still. And you may rest your hands and palms on your thighs. Inhale, exhale slowly. Inhale, exhale slowly. And if you're comfortable, you may like to close your eyes. Become aware of your body. If there's any tension, just relax your body. From your face, your head, your shoulders, your upper body, your arms. Wiggle your fingers if you need to and release it. Let it rest. Feel your ground, your 2 feet. And now become aware of your in-breath. Breathing in, this is life. Breathing out, I am alive. In breath, this is life. Out breath, I am alive. Breathing in, I'm joyful that I am alive. Breathing out, I live deeply this moment of life. In, the joy of life. Out, I'm grateful to life in me and all around me. Breathing in, I'm aware of the nature of growing old. Breathing out, I know I will not escape growing old. Breathing in, I'm grateful to the energy of life I have. Breathing out, I vow to live deeply with life. Breathing in, I know I am of the nature to get sick. Breathing out, I know I cannot escape sickness. In, aware that I am of the nature to get sick. Out, I cannot escape. I am aware that I am healthy now and I want to live and enjoy my health and as well as nourish my wellness every day. So I don't regret when I cannot walk anymore. I cannot hold a cup of tea anymore. Let us enjoy the simple things of life. Breathing in, I'm of the nature to die. Breathing out, I know that I cannot escape death. In, I'm aware that I am of the nature to die. Out, I cannot escape. Let us be aware of the nature of impermanence. give rise to the mindfulness of living deeply so that when death comes, we can let go with a smile on our face. Breathing in all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. Breathing out, there is no way to escape being separated from them. In everyone I love. Out, one day we all will say goodbye. Let us love each other more deeply, be compassionate toward one another, forgive more each day, so that our time together can be meaningful. And when the time comes, we are happy to let go. Breathing in, my actions are my true belongings, body, speech, and mind. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. Breathing out, my actions are the ground upon which I stand. Our continuation is beyond form, our legacy. Let us leave behind what will nourish this planet, what will nourish our loved ones, our descendants into the future. A small act of kindness, a small act of generosity, even an act of forgiving can change someone. Breathing in, I'm alive now. Breathing out, I will be alive continuing into the future. Breathing in, aware of life inside of me, I smile. Breathing out, aware of life all around me, I smile. I smile to the miracle of life. And as you continue to smile to the miracle of life, very gently, very slowly, you may open your eyes and share the smile with everyone around you, and send the smile to everyone who's practicing together.